there. Well, for more on this, let's now talk to Reza Marashi, Research Director at the National Iranian American Council. Thanks for joining us here on RT. On Iran, Barack Obama has emphasised the importance of using sanctions before considering a military strike. What do you think he's trying to achieve with this after numerous similar rounds proved to be, well, ineffective, really?
Well, I think we have to break it into two parts. This most recent round of sanctions that went forward today on Iranian individuals and entities was actually weeks in the making, and there was a congressionally mandated deadline of November 8th by which the White House had to report this. So this was not a decision that was made on the fly, per se, but it goes to my second point, which that this is a process that's increasingly becoming institutionalized within the United States. And it's troubling for one key reason, which is you can continue to ramp up the sanctions on Iran, but sanctions ostensibly are supposed to provide leverage at the negotiating table. If you're not using them as a negotiating chip when you're at the negotiating table, then all they are is a blunt instrument that ends up adversely affecting the lives of innocent Iranian people, which is what we're increasingly seeing to date with shortages of medicine and other things like that that could fall under the category of humanitarian goods. So this is the first instance in which we've seen Obama move forward on sanctions, and it remains to be seen whether or not he doubles down on the diplomatic track of his policy to try to find a peaceful solution to the crisis.
And of course, on July the 1st, the EU's embargo of oil exports went into effect, but China is Iran's biggest buyer of crude oil. Do embargoes or sanctions on Iran really have much impact on its economy then?
It certainly has an impact on the economy, but we have to ask ourselves, what's the metric of success? If the metric of success is to cause pain to the Iranian government and the Iranian people, then I guess you could call it successful, because certainly the Iranian government has less money in its bank accounts, and the Iranian people certainly are bearing the majority of the brunt of the sanctions. But we haven't seen to date tangible evidence of these sanctions causing the Iranian government to change its strategic calculus on its regional policies or on, more specifically, its nuclear policy. And that's supposed to be the goal. That's the metric of success that both the Bush administration and the Obama administration have defined. So at some point in time, we have to ask ourselves, and we should be asking ourselves this sooner rather than later, when do we recalibrate? And when do we try something different if what we've been trying for an extended period of time now has yet to provide success?
And of course, still in that region, Israel says a strike against Iran is on the cards. How will Tehran, given that, respond to these latest sanctions?
I think the Iranian government sees a difference between rhetoric that comes from Tel Aviv and rhetoric that comes from Washington. They take military threats credible insofar as they believe that the United States has the ability, the military prowess, to do the job. But they also believe that the United States would prefer not to. And they also know that the Israeli government does not possess the military technology that would be necessary to do the job effectively. That's to say they could start it, but they couldn't finish it, and then the United States would get dragged in and have to clean up the mess. So the Iranian government is in this very delicate position where they respond to the sanctions and the sabotage and secret assassinations that the United States and Israel move forward with, but they can't respond too heavily, because if they respond too much, they lose their heads. But if they don't respond enough, then they lose face at home within their own domestic political constituencies. So it's a very delicate balancing act for the Iranian government.
And looking wider afield, President Obama has once again authorized the use of drone strikes in Yemen, despite international criticism of such tactics. Are we going to see more of this?
I think so. What's past is prologue, and we've seen the Obama administration really ramp up the amount of drone usage, whether it is Yemen or Pakistan, or even today we saw a report of the Iranian government shooting at an American drone that was off of its coast. So we're in uncharted waters when it comes to policy, American policy related to drones. And until we have some rules to this game that the international community can abide by, playing off the same script, then it increases the likelihood of a conflict that the United States and the international community, I think, would independently seek to avoid.
Okay, Reza Marashi, Research Director at the National Iranian American Council. Thank you very much indeed for joining us here live on RT.